Okay, I have a client here, Miss Carol, and I'm going to bring her on, and she can talk a little bit about her experience, um, just kind of being in the program. Go from there. Hello, 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 girl.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm great. Happy to be on the live. This is my first
I
time
know,
going
girl.
live on Instagram.
You are so yes, you are like popular. You're a star. Let's get into it.
Hi, everyone.
So, Carol, introduce yourself. Let them know how old you are, like where you're from, what you do, and then we'll talk a little bit about your experiences.
Sure. So, my name's Carol Guerrero. I am from Lynn, Massachusetts, by way of Dominican Republic. My parents are both Dominican immigrants. I have lived in Massachusetts now for 2 years after having moved away for a while for law school and to be a teacher for a while. So I'm on my third career as a lawyer and happy to be back in Boston. I joined the program officially in September, but I've been like a longtime follower of N-word for all of 2021. At the referral of a good friend and somebody else that I knew that was in the program and was having a really positive experience. And so I just, I consumed like everything that Anwar said publicly. And then I joined the program and there was a whole lot more. So I'm happy to chat with you all today. I also see some people in here that I know. So, hey, Kristen.
Amazing. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. So talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned that you basically were stalking me. And
You put yourself out there though. You put yourself out there.
I try, girl. I try. So talk to me because, we had a conversation, I want to say in April and May, right?
Yeah.
And so you were kind of listening and hearing what I had to say and
Mm-hmm.
why? What did you feel I was saying that maybe was interesting to you, and why did you decide to kind of join the program?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I was in the dating world and I was confused all the time about what different things meant when men did them and how I should receive them, whether it meant that I needed to dig in and do more work, whether they were playing around. And so I really was looking for a way to like be systematic in my dating and not just like floating in the wind, which is definitely what I was doing. Um, and so the first podcast I listened to, I think, is your intro podcast, which was a session you did with, I think, a business group. And I remember listening to that and being like, oh, like unexpected. And then like as the podcast progressed, I was like, oh, there's like a system to this. And it also like really aligned with my values. Like I didn't feel like, you know, like I should have to change or like that I should um be like following some arbitrary like 90-day rule or something.
Girl, please
And
don't.
I know exactly. And so I just felt like what you were saying really aligned with like the growth mindset that I was trying to adopt. And I felt like what you were saying was very like internally consistent with how I think. And so I thought like, okay, there's something here. And like that's what I kept listening for. And then I just had a lot of little breakthroughs with like just listening to the podcast and on my own. And so I just got to a point where I was dating and I really liked this guy. And then he hit me with something that just like kind of blindsided me. And I was like, man, like I would really like to talk to somebody about this because I don't know if this is a deal breaker. And I also have feelings about it. I'm not sure how to navigate it. And like I could talk to my friends, but like your friends have a million opinions, and none of them are necessarily the way to go. And I just thought like I've been listening to Anwar for like 8 months and I just know that he would have like something good to say about this. But and so I'm gonna reach out. And then I did. And like that guy that I was struggling with, like I just didn't know what to do and how to navigate the situation is now my boyfriend. So that's because of you. And so I just have to say that like it's not, I tell people recently like it's not just dating, it's like life coaching. So
How we
so
do
I
one thing is
just
how we do everything.
right,
So
right, that's exactly right. And it's like changed so much of how I interact with him and with other people. And so it's been great.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So, talk to me a little bit about your love life before the program, and then we can talk about your love life a little bit, during the program, and kind of what are some of those things that you've learned, if you would mind sharing.
Sorry, I think I got kicked out there, but I'm back. So yeah, so my love life before the program. Um, well, I was dating, and I had a lot of expectations of what my guy would be, and if he wasn't meeting those expectations, I was kind of like disappointed, but I would keep it to myself because I wanted to keep the peace, right? And so
Yes.
that was my MO. I also just like I did a lot of work, like I was like, let's go on this date, or like, I wasn't necessarily observing what they were doing. I was like making things happen as I do, as women,
As
successful
an
women do.
overachiever, right?
Right.
I work with overachieving women, specifically most of them being women of color. And so it's a natural inclination for you to just make it happen and get it done.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Which is the
Um,
complete opposite of what you should be doing in dating.
it was really counterintuitive. It was so counterintuitive. So I was doing the most, I was trying to make things happen and like not observing and receiving men for like what they were doing. And so that just led to a lot of disappointment and like a lot of like effort that just made me feel less energetic about dating, like I felt like, oh man, like this is just another one, and I'm just like, this is where we are, so let me just accept this. I just couldn't see the path out of that cycle. And so that was before we started working together, even though I was listening to the podcast and like trying to internalize everything you were saying.
I think that's a
And
really good point, because I think sometimes people will be listening to my lives or my podcasts and they're thinking, oh my God, this is great. I don't really need to hire a dating coach. I'm getting all of this, like, all of these great things that I'm hearing from him. And it's like I have him as a coach, but
yeah.
like without paying.
Right, right, exactly. I just remember you always said like, this is the tip of the iceberg, and I was like, man, like I know that, and I just want to know. And so I would say though that like the podcast like really helped me start to shift my mindset. I was like, how are people showing up for me? Let me stop chasing, And so then I started dating people that were showing up, but like who I was incompatible with, and like I just was hyper focused on one person because I didn't want to go back out there, because I didn't necessarily have a strategy about how to like efficiently sift through the men that pop up on these apps. And so after I started working with you, you know, I had already met this guy, right? But I was also talking to other people, and that was encouraging because I felt like I had a really efficient system for working through the apps, while also confused about, not confused, but like dating the guy who's not my boyfriend. And so I felt like it was really systematic, and at no point did I feel like I needed to make it work with the one guy, because I knew that there were other guys that would become options. And
Yeah.
so I would say that the biggest shift was like I stopped hyper focusing, and I also just like had a strategy both for the people I was dating and the people that I was yet to meet.
Yeah. I love that. So I think sometimes people are like, will I really find someone and get with someone just because I'm like kind of with the dating coach? And so what would you say to those people that feel that way?
Um, I just have to say that like a year ago, like I was devastated by this like breakup that I had with somebody that I was dating who I wasn't exclusive with, but like who just like totally came out of left field and like shocked me. And I was in such a place where I was like, this I see around me that my friends are in relationships that make a lot of sense and that they can be their full selves with, and that like that just like are really a match, and I don't see that for myself like at all.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have to do X, Y, and Z before I can meet that person, before I even start dating. And now like I'm in this relationship that like it just like blows my mind how secure I feel all the time. Or,
Yeah.
most of the time we have our moments. We're a work in progress.
Don't we all, girl? Don't we all?
And
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
but like I I just feel so secure with him, and like I feel like I want to be with him all the time. And like I'm an introvert, like I don't like people, like I can't be around people 100% of the time.
Right.
And like when he leaves, I miss him, you know, like I want him to be around. And
Yeah.
so like I think I said to someone recently, like I think he's my person, you know, like I think he is. And it's just like a it's like unbelievable almost that transformation from a year ago. And it really just required like a mindset shift, you know. And I think in the program you talk about like unconscious incompetence, you know, like at one point I had no idea that I was doing it wrong and that's why it wasn't going well. And then when I started listening to you, I realized that I didn't know what I was doing, but like I could fix it. And now I'm at the point where I'm like consciously thinking about how to do this well, and like like with your help I'm figuring that out. And so I feel like I'm going to get to the point where like I'm like in this relationship I'm confident and I know exactly what I need to do to like be my full self and be received by this person that I'm choosing to spend my time with.
Yeah.
And so does that answer your question? I can't remember what the
Yeah,
question
it
was.
does.
Okay.
Absolutely. I know
All
you
right.
said that there was a huge mindset shift for you. What other things have you kind of received from the program or learned that have been game changers for you?
Whew, the biggest one, which I feel like I had a breakthrough about like just last week, is that I think when something is sitting on my spirit, you know, like I need to communicate it. And it's not necessarily
Yes,
like
ma'am.
reprimanding or like or you know, calling somebody out. It's just like this is my truth. And I'm gonna tell you in a loving way, and like I hope that you can accept it. And like I think as a people pleaser, I often thought like I can't tell someone when I'm upset, and like it's better for me to not tell them. That
Yeah.
will keep the peace. But the truth is that by suppressing my real feelings, I like create inner turmoil within myself, and that affects how I move all the time,
Yes.
you know? And so
Keeping
like
peace outwardly, creating war inwardly.
exactly,
Right? Mm-hmm.
exactly. And so, for example, like something like I hadn't said something that was bothering me, and then like every little thing started bothering me, you know?
Don't you?
And
Don't I know
so,
it, girl? Yes.
and so, like, that's affected my relationships with like certain family members that I fight with all the time. That's affected relationships with like certain coworkers who like cross boundaries. And, you know, it's like a really, I couldn't have even identified 6 months ago that I was keeping this inner turmoil within myself to keep the peace elsewhere and that it wasn't even working, you know? I
Yeah.
just feel like I've become a lot more in tune with my feelings because you're always asking me like how are you feeling, and I'm like, oh, let me think about that.
Yeah.
So
Because when you're someone who is always achieving things you're always doing and you don't really check in with yourself to understand how you're feeling. And I'm hoping that you understand and you can maybe attest to this, that like how you're feeling is so, it's like the number one thing that needs to be known and clarified in the relationship or it won't work.
right. I mean, the other thing that's right, that's 100% right. The other thing that helps is vulnerability, you know? And like I have found that I've said something that was like extremely vulnerable, like I felt very exposed by. And the only thing that has come from that is like more connection because it has allowed him to be more vulnerable. And it's like I've told you like I feel like a vulnerability hangover sometimes because
Yes,
I'm like,
girl.
wow, that was a lot. Like I just can't believe I said all that, you know. And
Yeah.
then like there have been like the direct consequence of that has been him like revealing something that was vulnerable for him. And so I'm just like, even when I have that vulnerability, like cringe, I'm like, it's okay. Like this is a safe space. Like,
Yeah.
and it's gonna create a safe space for him too. And so, I just, I didn't honestly, I didn't know how to do that. Even like, I see in theory, like I could think about how to do that, but I literally couldn't do it until you and I like literally spoke about it. Like, what are the words, you know?
Huh?
And had some of those moments ourselves, so,
Yeah.
between you and me, so that I could then communicate them to to my guy. So,
Yeah. I'm so
yeah.
glad that you're sharing this. One of the things that I also do with my clients is, we go through exactly how we're supposed to lead up to an exclusive relationship and we prepare for that conversation. And,
Mm.
my job is to be of the utmost support for my clients. And I know that we've had some moments, right, where we've been texting, whether it's 6 in the morning or 11 p.m. after a date, right?
Right,
Talk
right.
to me about those moments because I think a lot of people maybe aren't understanding like like what sort of support happens in the program?
Yeah, that's a good that was like one of my first moments where I thought, oh, the program's really worth it, because I was on a fourth date. I still remember,
I
and
do too.
and it was this great date that I like had a really good time in. And at this point, we hadn't kissed or he hadn't made any moves. Like we hadn't even held hands, and so I was like, okay, this date was great. Like, there's no way it's not going to happen at the end of this date. And then in the last 5 minutes, it was like he became a different person. Like he was walking with his hands like clung together behind his back. He gave me like a half-second hug, and then it like felt like he just ran away. Like he gave me the half-second hug and ran away. And I was like, I literally was standing in the middle of the street like what? You know,
Yeah.
like it just doesn't make any sense. And so I texted Anwar and I said, you know, I'm like really frustrated right now. And then he asked me some follow-up questions. You asked me some follow-up questions. And I remember you saying like, okay, you need to tell him this. And I was like, whoa, like I can't tell him that. But then you said like, this is something you could say, but like say it in your own words. I said essentially what you told me, and it led to this like very productive conversation about where he was and whether he was in like whether he was feeling it romantically or whether it was just a friendship. And he was
You
very
assumed because, sorry to interrupt, you
no
assumed because there wasn't a lot of physical intimacy that he wasn't really feeling it.
exactly. And he was like, I wouldn't be talking to you every day if I wasn't feeling it. Like he felt the exact opposite of what I was assuming.
And I just want to let the ladies out there know who are listening, men who do not get physical with you really quickly are actually serious about it. And I think that sometimes people don't understand that they think, oh, you're not trying to do anything, that means you don't like me. No,
Right.
it's actually the complete opposite. And I think that was the moment that I had to share that with you.
Yeah.
That it was like, no, this is something that is actually, he's making very sacred. And he's overly respecting your boundaries because he cares about you that much.
Yeah,
right?
and he has continued to do that, and I've like felt a lot of safety from that. To your point about the coaching, that was I think maybe like a week into the program, and so I felt like wow, and we're like immediately heard and understood what I was saying, and like immediately at like 11:30 at night or whatever it was. Like,
yes, honey, I'm texting in the bed with my partner on the side. I know he thinks I'm cheating on him. And I'm like, no, it's my client. It's my client. He needs me.
Right. And then like, and I mean, all of that happened within a week, you know, and of working with you. And so I just like, that built a lot of trust for me because I was like, oh, Anwar's going to gonna understand what I'm going through and is gonna like immediately like step in. And like that's borne out many times. Like I think I was on the West Coast like on a trip with Bay, right? And I was texting you at like 5 a.m.
Wait, by the way, that's one of the first long trips with Bay, right?
Right.
With a Bay. Like, you've
Yes.
had a lot of firsts in the last few months.
Right? I continue to have a lot of firsts, yes.
Yeah.
So,
I want to honor that because I think that we date for so long and it's hard. And so when you do have these opportunities and experiences, it's so beautiful. So I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. I'm happy for me too.
Okay, so you were with Bay on a West Coast
trip.
trip.
So I was with Bay and I was like, Anwar, this is happening. And I was like, please respond at a more appropriate time. I'm just texting you now because he's asleep and like these are the 2 minutes I have to text about this. And he was like, and Anwar, you said like, I have 3 children. I'm awake. You know, like, so you've just been like abundantly available. Like, I don't understand how you do it. And I'm really grateful for it because sometimes like it just feels so important in the moment. And you know, it's nice to have somebody to bounce ideas off of that isn't just like a friend who's like, oh girl, like yeah, that sucks. You know, like somebody who is like really thinking about what my long-term goals are and like how I can honor myself in these situations that sometimes feel like they get in the way of those goals.
Yeah, definitely. So for anyone who may be on the fence, thinking about coming into the program or not, what would you say to them?
I would say if in 6 months, and I don't think that it will take that long because I've only been in the program for like 3. If in 6 months you could feel like this love life thing, which is a mystery to you, could be resolved, would you do it? You know? And like I have full faith in Anwar about his experience and like true talents in this space. And so it's just a question of whether you want to get to where you want to be. And if you do, then you should sign up because I mean, I knew what the value was, but I just had no idea how I would get there. And like the day-to-day value is just like far beyond what I pay for it. So
Yeah.
100%.
Thank you, girl. You're buttering me up. I feel so good and warm inside. That's so sweet of you.
I'm glad
Oh,
I could return some of it because you give it
girl,
to me so often.
girl, thank you. Well, Carol and I have a session right now, so we gotta go. We
Bye,
gotta talk
y'all.
about Bay. We gotta talk about everything that's going on. But Carol, thank you so much for sharing your experience with, all of the followers. And for those of you that are interested in having an amazing experience like Carol has, you can DM me and we can have our first date on a consultation call. If you want to go to www.getyourguidecoaching.com/apply, we'll have our first date. And then before you know it, your love life is going to be rocking out. All right, my loves, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this is helpful for you. But Carol and I have to go. We have Bay Talk to talk about. All right, bye, everyone. Thank you,
Bye.
Carol.